this case is a sign. Britain now faces a new threat. Terrorism has changed. In the past, the predominant threat was highly organised groups with clear political intent, groups like Al-Qaeda. That threat, of course, remains. But now, alongside that, we also see acts of extreme violence perpetrated by loners, misfits, young men in their bedroom, accessing all manner of material online, desperate for notoriety, sometimes inspired by traditional terrorist groups, but fixated on that extreme violence, seemingly for its own sake. Now, it may well be that people like this are harder to spot, but we can't shrug our shoulders and accept that. We can't have a national security system that fails to tackle people who are a danger to our values, our security, our children. We have to be ready to face every threat. And when I look through the details of this case, the extreme nature of the violence, the meticulous plan to attack young children in a place of joy and safety, violence clearly intended to terrorise, then I understand why people wonder what the word terrorism means. And so if the law needs to change to recognise this new and dangerous threat, then we will change it, and quickly. And we will also review our entire counter-extremist system to make sure we have what we need to defeat it.
Chaos erupted in Parliament just moments ago as Keir Starmer, under immense pressure, lost control in a fiery reaction to a devastating blow from his own MPs. A no-confidence vote has been officially launched against him, all triggered by a shocking Brexit U-turn that has shattered promises and ignited fury across party lines. What started as a strategic reset has exploded into a full-blown political crisis. Starmer's grip on power is slipping fast, and the consequences could reshape the future of Britain's Brexit saga forever. Interestingly, MPs from both the Conservative and Labour benches are now uniting behind a dramatic motion of no confidence. And Starmer, he's losing control because this isn't just political theater. This is a full-scale revolt from within and without. The sense of betrayal is unmistakable. After years of pledging to respect the outcome of Brexit, Starmer has spun on his heels. He now appears to be begging Brussels to reinstate the very powers we fought to reclaim, law by law, competence by competence, inch by inch. Even more worrying, his ranks are beginning to crumble.
One little mention clause in the quietly signed deal. The EU will retain fishing rights in British waters until the year 2038. Yes, 2038. Another 12 years of foreign vessels plundering our seas while British fishermen are left with empty promises. The Scottish Fishermen's Federation has described it as a broad daylight nightmare. At Westminster, outrage is boiling over. This isn't a strategy, it's a surrender, one anonymous Labour MP whispered to the press.
According to him, Starmer is dragging both his party and the country into a Brexit betrayal from which Britain may never recover. But it doesn't stop there. Starmer has just signed off on a youth mobility scheme, paving the way for the return of free movement. Under this arrangement, EU citizens aged 18 to 30 will be able to live and work in the UK for up to 3 years.
Well, I can now speak with Alex Thomas, the Programme Director at the Institute for Government. Alex, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. So this petition is going up like a fruit machine, but nevertheless, no doubt Sir Keir Starmer won't give us any fruit. It won't have any teeth, will it? But is it an embarrassment for the government in a major manner?
Yeah, afternoon. Thanks for having me on. I mean, I think you're right in that I don't think it will change very much or have very many consequences, and that's because all that happens if these petitions get over 100,000 signatures is there's a debate in what's called Westminster Hall, which is like an annex, a small debating chamber off Parliament, and you could expect a minister to stand up and say, thank you very much. Understand we've had this petition, but the government's recently been elected by a large majority. But I also think...
The atmosphere in Parliament was tense and volatile. The no confident vote isn't just a symbolic gesture. It could topple the leadership and trigger a seismic shift in the UK's political landscape. Starmer's supporters scramble to contain the fallout, but the cracks are visible and widening. Opposition leaders, especially Nigel Farage and Reform UK, he's been relentless in the media, calling out every concession, every handshake with Brussels, every lie dressed up as progress, because the truth is cold and bitter. This isn't Brexit restored, it's Brexit reversed. And Starmer, many now say, is finally showing his true face. A European dreamer desperate for a pat on the back in Davos, in Brussels, anywhere it seems except Britain. And now, as this betrayal unfolds before our very eyes, the fury is erupting with equal force.
As for community, we are totally appalled as a party at the growth of two-tier Britain under two-tier Keir. I want to make it absolutely clear, Lucy Connolly should not be in prison. The sentence that was given to her was absolutely excessive. And while she should not have said what she said, understand there were millions of mothers at that moment in time after Southport feeling exactly the same way. We also find it appalling that there is now open discrimination in employment advertising against white British people. DEI must go. We are a party that believes in meritocracy. We're a party that does not accept that somehow there is something uniquely awful about the British people or about our past. We believe the opposite. We actually believe that the British people are the most open-minded and tolerant country, frankly, that you could find.
Conservative MPs have not held back, branding it the greatest economic betrayal in modern history, a national humiliation and a slap in the face to the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the EU. Even Boris Johnson has broken his silence. The question is this: why has Keir Starmer willingly dragged us back into the embrace of Brussels? What lies ahead is anemic growth, stagnant productivity and suffocating regulation. There is no benefit, only submission, and the cruel irony, Starmer knows it. The public's patience is wearing thin. In coastal towns devastated by foreign fishing fleets and communities feeling abandoned, protests are already being planned. Starmer's carefully crafted image of steady leadership is crumbling, as voters feel increasingly betrayed. This crisis comes at a time when the UK's economy is fragile. Public trust in politicians is low, and Brexit itself remains a deeply divisive issue. The stakes could not be higher.
It is a sign that under this government, the sort of disposition of the whole system is to take us back into the European Union insofar as they can. And I'm afraid this is really, it's not just a betrayal of Brexit, it's a betrayal of the whole nation and our best prospects. And the truth is that... Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, what practically can we do about it, if anything?
Well, this is the problem with a government that's got what amounts to a supermajority, and I'm afraid, I'm sorry, but I and others did warn this sort of thing would happen. In Wickham, people who usually vote Conservative stayed at home in their thousands, and I lost, even though the Labour vote fell. I mean, this election was a terrible, really, indictment on the political class, a huge sort of sigh of disillusionment with politics, but the result is that the Labour Party's got an absolutely enormous majority and can do what it wants. And I have to say, reading the Guardian story about this free movement, youth mobility proposal, I can just see all the elements for setup. The government has put up these MPs to write to them, I'm quite sure, asking for this scheme, and they have successfully got us talking about youth mobility, when on the other hand, they're selling out the fishermen, they're really giving up defence when they should have done something sensible. There's no talk about financial services, which again is a big opportunity for the EU to do more trade with us on financial services. So what is actually the routine 5-year review of the trade and cooperation agreement? This was always going to happen this year, it's turning into yet another illustration of the incompetence of this Prime Minister when it comes to negotiating in the national interest.
As the no-confident vote gains momentum, the question on everyone's mind is simple but terrifying. Can Starmer survive this political earthquake, or is the end of his leadership inevitable? The fallout will ripple far beyond Westminster, impacting everything from trade relations to national unity. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. The unfolding political turmoil surrounding Keir Starmer has rapidly intensified as the no-confidence vote moves closer to fruition, revealing deep fractures not only within the Labour Party, but across the entire UK political landscape. Starmer's so-called historic reset of UK-EU relations has been met with overwhelming hostility, especially from those who once supported him under the assumption that Brexit's mandate would be upheld without compromise.
We'll make sure that we get them. Yeah. And the other thing that we got back, the only thing it seemed to me we got back was we can stand in shorter EQs at passport control when we're travelling around Europe. We can join the EU queues. Frankly, I've very much enjoyed not being in the EU queues. I rather like not being in them, so I don't want that concession. But even if you do, that's pretty feeble, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm housebound, so the EQ things are absolutely no use to me. Bugger that. I mean, the thing as well, it's just this guy. He's not even been in a year. I mean, he's sold so much of our country out. He's annoyed pretty much every sector outside of the public sector. At this point, honestly, Kev, I really don't take off the table Falklands, Gibraltar. We're literally going to end up, I think his whole plan, as far as what he thinks of Britain, is he's going to take us back to pre-colonial times.
Well, that's what he wants to try to do. He's an enemy of British imperialism, of colonialism. It's not really a thing anymore. He doesn't have to go around giving everything back. It's just like someone said about Keir Starmer earlier, Mark. His first thought is not for British interests, it's for EU interests. He thinks of Brussels before he thinks of us. It's going to cost him dear, I will tell you that. Mark, good to talk to you as always. That's Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go back to break now. When we come back, more of your voice notes, your messages, and of course your phone calls. 03444991000.
This deal, shrouded in secrecy and strikingly at odds with the promises made during the Brexit campaign, effectively returns key aspects of British sovereignty to Brussels' control, infuriating MPs and voters alike. The backlash is not limited to the opposition benches. Within Labour itself, the sense of betrayal is palpable. Party insiders speak in hushed tones of a leadership that has lost touch with its grassroots and traditional supporters, many of whom feel abandoned by a leader who appears willing to concede fundamental Brexit principles for political expediency. For instance, the notion that the Youth Mobility Scheme, allowing EU citizens unrestricted access to life and work in the UK, is a benign policy, has been soundly rejected by critics who see it as a backdoor to reinstating free movement, a cornerstone of the Brexit rejection. This perception has widened the gulf between Starmer and his base, fueling internal dissent and complicating efforts to maintain party unity amid escalating external pressure. This localised flashpoint has translated into national outrage, with protests already being organised in towns such as Grimsby, Hull and Plymouth. The political ramifications are severe as Brexit voters traditionally loyal to Labour are now publicly pledging to abandon the party, driving voters toward Reform UK and other Eurosceptic alternatives. This shift threatens to redraw electoral maps, particularly in regions that were crucial to Labour's past successes. Beyond the immediate political fallout, the deal's broader implications pose significant challenges for Britain's autonomy in trade, legal affairs and defence. The reintroduction of EU judicial oversight via the European Court of Justice is particularly contentious, undermining one of the central promises of Brexit to free the UK from EU legal entanglements. This development has been portrayed by critics as an erosion of British sovereignty, further alienating nationalists and those who champion Brexit as a reclaiming of self-governance. Similarly, the alignment of defence cooperation with EU ambitions for a European army has sparked fears among politicians on both sides of the aisle who view such moves as diluting the UK's independent military posture and entangling it in broader continental defence initiatives that may not serve British interests. The framing of the deal as an economic win, such as the claim that it saves travellers 10 minutes at airport passport control, has been widely dismissed as a superficial distraction from the substantial concessions embedded in the agreement. This messaging failure has only intensified public scepticism and mistrust toward the government's handling of Brexit. The internal dynamics within the Labour Party have grown increasingly volatile as Starmer's leadership faces unprecedented challenges. Reports of closed-door confrontations reveal a leader struggling to command authority and rally support amid growing dissent. The threat of deselections against rebellious MPs, branding them as traitors, highlights a fracturing party, desperate to maintain discipline but unable to reconcile its divisions. This approach risks further alienating members and voters who see such tactics as heavy-handed and indicative of a leadership out of touch with its democratic base. The cross-party nature of the no-confidence initiative signals a rare moment of unity against Keir Starmer, transcending traditional political boundaries and underscoring the depth of dissatisfaction with his Brexit strategy. The rebellion is driven by a shared conviction among MPs that the leadership's approach represents not just a policy failure, but a fundamental betrayal of the Brexit mandate and the will of millions of voters. This sentiment is echoed loudly in public demonstrations and media coverage, painting a picture of a political crisis that extends beyond Westminster's walls and into the heart of British society. The no-confidence vote, while a parliamentary procedure, symbolises a deeper contest over the future direction of the country and the legitimacy of its leaders. The stakes are high, and the outcome could precipitate not only a change in leadership, but also a reconfiguration of the UK's political landscape, potentially leading to early elections and intensified debates over Brexit's legacy. As this crisis unfolds, the public's patience is wearing thin. Trust in politicians has reached historic lows, and many citizens view the deal and Starr's handling of it as emblematic of wider governmental failures. The growing sense of betrayal, particularly among Brexit voters who feel their voices have been ignored or reversed, fuels social unrest and political volatility. The protests planned in key coastal areas are likely only the beginning of broader grassroots movements demanding accountability and a return to the promises that defined the Brexit referendum. Media narratives increasingly frame the crisis as a pivotal moment for the UK's sovereignty and democratic integrity, with international observers closely watching the fallout and its implications for UK-EU relations. At this time, Starmer's leadership is under unprecedented scrutiny, with critics questioning whether he can effectively navigate the treacherous waters ahead, or if his political career will be defined by this moment of dramatic collapse. The economic outlook further complicates the situation. If you enjoyed this political firestorm, like the video and subscribe to the channel for a more fascinating political tsunami.